Welcome to the Untech Podcast. My name is David, and with me is Jordan. We are talking today about Geoflow updates. We have some exciting tech stack updates. We have new features, Slack email integrations, and just stuff that we're excited to share with you
Frozen
guys.
sprinklers.
Frozen sprinklers, yeah. On the life updates side,
That's
Jordan
what
and
you
I were
want to
talking.
tell everyone today, right? Is about
Yeah.
how you
Before
done screwed up Aaron.
Before we started the podcast, we were talking about blowing out sprinklers because those of you who live up north here, the seasons are changing. And as Jordan made fun of the fact I'm wearing flannels now, because that's all I wear in the winter and late fall. It's getting colder. It was 27
That
degrees here. I was freezing
that's
this
all we do
morning.
before the podcast starts is just berate one another. Like,
Yeah.
you're wearing a flannel today?
Wow, you look dumb. It's how we get ourselves, encouraged and the energy level up before we start recording. For those of
It's a
you
defense
who,
mechanism.
yeah, defense mechanism. Makes me feel better about myself when I put you down.
Yep.
Yeah, it's great. No, I did not blow out my sprinklers yet. The guy who blows out our sprinklers just had a baby yesterday. Well, his wife had the baby, but so fingers crossed that he's actually going to come and blow them out. He was supposed to this week, but it's 27 here. So times a changing, seasons a changing.
Get that baby over to blow out the sprinklers. 2 days old, living at home, unemployed.
About time for them to start pulling their own weight around here. Yes. But anyways, it is cold here. It's cold there. It's cold everywhere except for in Southern California where we once lived. Hottober. It'd be lighting fires these days. But Jordan, people are here because exciting things. Motia, however you say it. We were talking again before we started that both of our kids are in school learning various like language arts and sentence structures and how to pronounce things. And both of us have clearly forgotten all of our schooling and we still can't pronounce names of companies, but Motia, Motia.
It's all these ones that end in IA right now that we're having, like, think of the last couple podcasts we did. It's Motia right now, and it was Dia, Jura,
Gyra.
Others too.
Yeah, and other examples.
And other examples too. But yeah, Motia is the pronunciation you were looking for. So that's a part of the Geoflow updates for this week. We have a handful of them, Motia kind of being the first one we'll talk about. But we do have quite a few updates. It's been a pretty busy last couple weeks. At this stage of a project or this stage of a kind of a startup, and especially an open source thing, you go back and forth and try things out, and you do it while you can. I mean, when it's the code's out there, it's in production, it's far harder to do that, of course. So Motia was an attempt to try out a new backend, and it went extremely well. So we're excited to talk about that one for sure.
Yeah, you said in the first hour of you kind of screwing around with the library, you got rid of 3,000 lines of code, was it? Or simplified the code base by a pretty substantial margin?
Yeah, so Motia is, I guess just like from a high level, Motia is a back end. I don't know if framework's the best word, but I'm going to say framework for kind of running and executing our workflows. So when you execute a workflow and you execute a node, the processing of that node happens in Motia. So before, this was happening in Convex. So you would run those nodes, it would run in Convex, and Convex isn't really designed to do this. Convex is a really good database. It's got really good real-time capabilities, but we are kind of overextending it with using it as a processing engine. Now Motia, on the other hand, it has everything from your regular kind of like APIs and endpoints, but background jobs and crons and streaming and state and observability and all that stuff. So yeah, the minute we basically plug this in, we got rid of like 2,000 or 3,000 lines of code. It hardened processes in ways that would have taken us forever to do. I mean, think of like observability and concurrency and async stuff. Like, that's so complicated, and that just comes in for free with Motia.
Yeah. So I mean, from the DevX side, obviously simplifies things massively. But there's some pretty substantial, I guess, end user benefits as well. I guess kind of the polyglot side of things, being able to run multiple different languages through it as a processing engine is probably the biggest, right?
Yeah, and probably should have been the first thing I even said about it because that's probably the most unique
Well,
part.
you're only
Espe
worried about the developer experience because you're
Yeah,
selfish.
true. Incredibly selfish. Um, but, it actually does have some development, experience benefits as well, or developer experience benefits as well, because you're not trying to if you have to run something in, say, like Python, you're not creating a separate Python server and, an API just to run Python stuff. You can run Python now directly in Motia.
Yeah, so if you were like a GIS guy or a data scientist and you had, your own kind of repo or set of Python scripts for processing data or reprojecting data or counting trees or something like that, you could just take that Python code and create a custom node using that Python code. You wouldn't have to try and interpret it for TypeScript, JavaScript, or whatever. You could just take that, almost copy paste, and run like a custom node using the Python that you already have, correct?
Yeah. I mean, it depends on the level of complexity that what you're trying to run is,
Right.
because nice thing about Motia is you can set it up with like a requirements.txt file, and you can bring in packages, and you can set it up almost like a project, and you can call on, that node, that Python node now, just as you would, any of these other ones that have NPM packages, say, we're going to have further updates here in a few minutes about our new nodes that we have, but we have a new node for resend. So, we're actually resend, we're just using the REST API, but Slack is a better example. We have a new Slack node, and that uses the Slack NPM package. And that ability to kind of like use packages and do all that stuff is pretty important. And with Python and with Motia, you can do that as well. So if you have, Python packages for tree counts or doing goofy image stuff, Python is such a great place to do that. And there's so much out there in Python that when you hit the web side of things, sometimes it never translates. So I'm excited for Motia.
Yeah. So a lot more obviously to come with Motia. The big takeaways for people obviously is that, from the development standpoint, it makes things a lot easier, but it also unlocks just a bunch of hopefully future looking things that we're pretty excited about. And even as we get people into the code base, which we'll have an update at the end about kind of timelines for that and how people can get involved there. But as people get into the code base, hopefully being able to add like their own nodes or bring stuff or projects that they've been working on. Some of the people we've talked to, I mean, for decades, in the GIS space, they have some of these that they've just, developed and refined and honed for years and years and years, and could potentially bring to a platform like this and get the benefits of the automation, get the benefits of the other, nodes and things like that that we have, and then also deploy kind of a graphical in a GUI, some of those scripts and things. So much more to come from Motia, but you kind of alluded to it. We have a few more I guess, communication based nodes. We have some email type stuff, some Slack stuff. What are kind of the updates on that end, and how they impact people?
Yeah, I guess communication nodes is a good way to put it. Hadn't thought of it, but a lot of these are actually like sending
I'm the
messages
marketing
or
guy.
updates. Yeah, you're the marketing guy. Yep. So we have a Slack node, we have a resend node, we have a new email node, we have a GDAL node, and we have lots of updates to S3. So there's a lot of stuff there, but the kind of focus was as you get down with these workflows and you want to send a message, like you run this process, point cloud processing that takes 3 hours, and you want to send an update when you're done. You might want to send yourself an email. You could use the resend node, or you could use the email node, which is uses node mailer. But you could send yourself a message. You could go in and you could, kick off the next process. You could view the data, which is another new node that we have that we're going to talk about. You could view point clouds in Aura, which is our kind of visualizer and processing platform, I guess you could say, for point clouds. And it's just a really good way to kind of bow tie, or at least kind of bookend these workflows when you want to start them manually or with a webhook. But then when you're done, you want to know when it's done. And that's kind of what a lot of these updates this week are for.
Yeah, and part of the goal there being, to introduce the human in the loop piece of, you have all of these processes that you can chain together, but, the goal being, at some point you need to view the data, make sure that you're producing stuff that's actually usable and effective. And so, how do you do that? Where do you introduce people? Do you, introduce them halfway through a process? Like if we recently put out a video where you did a ground classification, and then you created a DTM, and then you created contours. Do you want to have somebody quick QC the ground class first? And, maybe that's a Slack notification that goes to one of your processing guys and says, hey, this is ready for you to quick do a review. And once they do a review, they can kick off, the next part of a process. But, you know, part of automation is figuring out, when to start the automation, how to make sure that it's an effective automation, and when and where people are involved in the loop. So whether that's emails or Slack messages or, who knows, text messages eventually, or WhatsApp messages, or whatever it is, updates to, project management software. We've talked about that of, Procore or Jira, however you pronounce it.
But wouldn't you say that this human on the loop component is, like, we don't have a note for that yet. That's gonna have to be something we think through pretty hard. But wouldn't you just say that this industry benefits from that? I mean, I look at like N8N and what people are building in those things, and they have good human in the loop, the kind of like functionality for that too, which is great. But I feel like it's almost a requirement in geospatial, like remote sensing, GIS, all this stuff, because it is very procedural. But I mean, it's like the classic saying, like crap in, crap out. Like you have to make sure you're not dealing with crap. When you run your first ground class and do all that stuff, if that's the bar, I mean, that obviously if you have a crappy ground class, if pretending this is a topo project, like you can have a terrible DTM, you're gonna have terrible contours, your brake lines, all these different things. It all kind of flows downstream. I should air quote air downstream, but yeah. So that human in the loop is super important. I mean, does the ground class look okay? And reducing the friction. So we have this, and I think it's probably a good time to talk about the new Aura integration and the Aura node, because it's kind of our first
Well,
step in that direction.
and maybe even backing up further, what is Aura? Aura is, for those who've been following along the journey more than the past month or two, we built out QuantaScan and Aura as a visualization platform, somewhat project management platform specifically for 3D data, um, and using cesium and things like that, so people could view data in an online platform. So when we talk about Aura,
Yep.
that's what we're talking about. It's separate from the Geoflow platform, obviously closely tied because we develop both. So, there'll be very tight integrations between the two, but it's a visualization platform, right? That'd probably be the best way to describe. And you mentioned that, but just
Yeah.
ensuring people have the context.
Yeah. No, that's it. I mean, that's an accurate way to describe it. The issue we ran into, which kind of, we might have talked about this before, but it's good to hit on again. So we were developing Aura, and it's a great visualizer. It's a great way to share projects and download projects, but that's just a piece of the puzzle for the life cycle of a project, right? So we went through the natural, progression of developing that app, and we added macros and scripts and had like a background worker to do all that stuff. But it still didn't feel like we're solving like the whole problem. Like we're solving a slice of the problem. And if you don't solve the whole problem, adoption is very difficult, because, hey, you still got to go use your old tools, or you got to go use Global Mapper for this or Terrasol for that. So it felt like, wow, Aura does some amazing thing. It's an awesome visualization platform, but it doesn't solve like enough of the problem to where it wasn't, in our minds, attractive enough to release it. Like it felt like it felt incomplete. So that's what spurred the motivation for Geoflow, as kind of, that's more background than most people probably want to hear, but that's kind of the impetus for Geoflow and how we even got to where we are today.
Yeah, and what we've found though, like you were alluding to just a second ago about like the human in the loop piece, is that as you marry these two together, you're able to create something much more, I guess, helpful, or
Mhm.
something that it ticks a whole lot more of the boxes, because like you said, automation without a human in the loop. if you have a ground class that's off and a DTM and contours that are off, like this data doesn't, remote sensing data, GIS data doesn't stop with, a data provider, which obviously we have a lot of experience as the data providers, but, it goes it goes downstream pretty far after, we release the project. It goes to the, surveyors who, maybe QC it, or it goes to an engineering firm who puts together a design, and that gets passed to a construction firm who builds it. And then you have a owner's engineer that comes afterwards, and they quality control and make sure everything works. And it's like, if you were off up here at the beginning, like you said, crap in, crap out, like it could have major implications for like an engineer down the road. So it's like, you can't, you can't just like automate and hope for the best. Like if, like to use your N8N example, if you're like marketing flow to think up new podcast ideas that are entertaining, in
Yeah.
N8N, if that's wrong, like the worst that happens is you have a dumb podcast idea and you just don't use it.
Right.
But like if automation is wrong in the geospatial industry, you could be providing engineers with data that's wrong as they like
Right.
go to build a building, or, you know, power poles or something like that. And that like, the tolerance for error is, much, much, much different. And so you have to have
Oh,
like
yeah.
a logical flow for that.
Yeah. And I mean, yeah, the hours and hours these things execute for, and not, you know, seconds or milliseconds, like an automation to transcribe YouTube and post it to YouTube. That's a whole different world, of course. But Aura, but kind of coming full circle on it, right? Like Aura being that tangible visual component of human in the loop, where you can inject that at any point in your workflow. So we have it just as the Aura node right now. So it's very simple. It's going to hopefully get far more sophisticated than what it is. But right now, you can just interject that node anywhere along your workflow. And the requirement is that you have to save the file as a COPC LAZ, which understandably is a limitation. So we might explore other kind of human in the loop alternatives too, but it works extremely well, because even if you save your point cloud as COPC LAZ, you can still work with that COPC LAZ further downstream. It's not like an extra thing you have to create just for human in the loop or just to view your data. It's, old things might have been like, oh, now convert to this tiling scheme, and now you have your regular LAS or LAZ. And then in addition, now you have this like tiles, that take up additional space and add time to processing. So the nice thing about COPC LAZ is it fits right in, and, nudges right in. It just takes a little bit longer to typically to save and, decompress and stuff like that. But yeah, so I mean, I can also get the old viewer out, screen share out, and even just show this a little bit, or at least show what Aura is, if we got
Yeah,
time for that.
we do. And yeah, for those that are just listening, I guess what to bow tie that a bit as Jordan's pulling that up, like the goal is ultimately to have processes through things like PDAL and GDAL, or eventually WebODM, and we'll be talking about that in another podcast. But having these processes running, and then having communication nodes like Slack, or like emails or things like that that notify you of where the process is, because like Jordan said, this is not milliseconds. Some of these processes can take hours, and so to notify you when they're done, and then give you a place to view things, understand things, approve things, reject things. So it's, kind of ticking all of those boxes of human in loop, notification of where things are, and then visualization of what's been done, and then the ability to, kick off another process afterwards, or move on to the next step, or reject the step and go back to the beginning and change things. So that's kind of the goal with these nodes and what we're putting together there.
Yep, that's exactly right. So when you add in an Aura node right now, and you save your point cloud as an LAZ or as a COPC LAZ, you can just simply click a button in that Aura node to open an Aura. And this is where you'd be sent. So you'd be sent to a viewer. So this is hosted independent of Geoflow. So you don't have to like install or do anything special with Geoflow. This just is hosted at the Aura website. But you get this visualizer. So you can come in here, you can view it by class. So if you just, if you ran a ground classification or something like that, you could view all the the classes on things. You could view it, I don't know, all your typical elevations and all that type of stuff. But I mean, the idea is you quick open it up, even on your phone. So Aura works extremely well on the phone. You can come in here, check out the ground classes, make sure it worked, first of all. I mean, there's times where you have just your ground classification settings are just goofy and you get just, 5% of the returns or 5% of the ground class that you were expecting. So just quick pop eyes on it and then go back in to that Aura node and hit accept or resume or continue, and it continues along. Again, that human in the loop there, but Aura's a really nice, just basic visualizer that you can come in here, check on your things and move on.
Yeah, and part of the foundation of Aura too is sharing and collaboration, and so those will be things that we continue to build out in Aura, capabilities there. But being able to, you could send a Slack notification to a team, and everybody could quick hop in there, or somebody
Yep.
could hop in there and leave a comment or a note, to accept or to move on, or those types of things. So there's a whole lot of like collaborative team based stuff that's to come there as well, that we're excited to. Again, this is early days. We're 50, 60 days into building here, but there's a whole lot of potential here, and so we're excited about that. Excited to get people in there.
So we have the Motia stuff that's brand new. We have the new nodes. We have the Aura integration. But real quick before we finish, I'd be remiss if we didn't quick talk about webhooks, because I'm a nerd for webhooks. It's like a weird thing. Like, people love webhooks or hate them. I'm a webhookie. That's a thing. You go to conferences, we do meetups. But it's a great way to kickstart like an automated workflow. So you might have a file that was added to S3 to your bucket, or you could kickstart a workflow from a Slack message. So you could send a Slack message to your Geoflow bot in Slack and say, I don't know what you'd say, but you
At
could,
Geoflow bot start.
do it now and do it faster.
Yeah, yell at them.
So
I hear
yell
yelling
at
at AI and bots is. We could do a whole podcast on yelling at AI, but
mm-hmm.
in any
It's
case,
fun.
webhooks.
Something that always apologizes to you. Um, but we got webhooks. Those are in a working version. There's a lot of different kind of like data types and different payload kind of structures we want to continue to add towards it. But that's all in a good working state. We added a new credential system, which is really fun because, everyone loves hashing and encrypting and decrypting and all that good stuff. But now when you add a node, let's say like your S3 node, you don't have to type in your access key or your secret access key every time you add that node, which is a massive pain. You can just type it in once in your credentials manager, and then you just select it whenever you need. So that's great. I'm excited about that one as just a
Quality of life.
quality of life as being a human and doing this that would get old really quickly. But that's basically it. That's the Geoflow updates for the week of October 16th. Pretty fun stuff.
Fun stuff, and it's a good segue into part of what we talked about. Again, this podcast, as of now, we have 20 to 30 weekly listeners, but
Jeez.
part of our goal is to find some early adopters. People have been reaching out to us, email or LinkedIn, or on our Discord channel. Part of our goal, Jordan, is here in next couple of weeks, start to get some of those early adopters into the platform, understanding obviously that things will break, there will be bugs, there will be goofy things, and there will have to be a lot of back and forth. But that is on the horizon, and we're looking for the committed few, the dedicated few that want to be the early adopters. We might even make a separate Discord channel in our Discord for these folks to kind of get there and start playing. But when are we hoping to do that? And what are kind of the expectations around that?
So from like a feature standpoint, we could do it today, right? But it just has to get to a point where it's cleaned up and it makes sense that somebody goes in there and they're not just fumbling, which I would have said people would have been fumbling a couple weeks ago. It's been cleaned up a lot. I mean, the Motia stuff obviously added to a lot of, kind of throwing out the old and bringing in the new. So there's a lot of change up from that. But I think we're kind of getting to a little bit more of a state of stability, I guess. Like I don't have, it's weird for me to say, but I don't have anything that I'm like dying to change, a library out for or something like that. So we're going to spend the next week or two getting the code in a place to where we can get it in GitHub, open it up. And, I think the most important thing for us is just getting people in there. I mean, it's like David said, it's not going to be in a place where you're going to go deploy this and run it in a production sense. I mean, you can certainly try. I mean, it's certainly not going to hurt, but it's not designed for that right now. It's a pre-release. It's certainly not even in an alpha stage or anything like that, but we do want to get feedback. Most importantly, we want the feedback and kind of community to drive the roadmap. Like we have our preconceived notions of what we think we want to do and stuff, but at the end of the day, it's just two of us, and we want it to be much more of a collective decision and get feedback. And we might have people hopping in there that are opinionated enough to start making notes and to start making big changes, and that is, of course, welcome. And PRs are going to be encouraged as long as they're not, David vibe coded, to a degree. But
Those are immediately rejected. If my name is attached to any sort of
Yeah.
branch, it's like immediate reject.
we're going to reject it, and then we'll have you resubmit it. And it's more of just like, it's like a military, like knock you down and build you back up thing. Like, no,
Yeah.
but maybe we'll see.
Yeah. We got to break you down and build you back up the way we want you. Yep.
Yeah. Well, that's the developer we need you to be. And you're not there yet. Yeah. But,
Yeah.
but
And we're the people to make it. Making what
yeah,
you.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So look for that maybe in the next week or two. I would say probably 2 weeks to be safe. I do feel pretty confident in saying a couple weeks. Who knows? It might be longer than that, just as the way timelines go, but it certainly won't be an extended period of time. That's for sure. But thanks for watching. We'll try to have more update videos or update podcasts too, just so we can explain the concepts and the decisions that we're making and hopefully make some sense of things. But either way, thanks for listening, and we will catch you on the next one.
See ya.